Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
My biggest fear is that only the Black students will read it. And at the end of the day, that doesn't change anything.
It's a disaster here. We called so many times because we've seen lots of cars. They come, especially they come at night or in the middle of the like midnight, and they throw the garbage there.
It is a scrapbook of Helen Cumming, who was a journalist, born and raised. It's a scrapbook of her work specifically related to World War II.
Thanks for joining us. A new report for Windsor's law school says that anti-Black racism on a campus has never been more blatant. Students have criticized the university's lack of action in recent years, a period the dean of the law school calls both difficult and painful. The CBC's Chris Ensing joins me now live in studio. Chris, talk us through the report.
Yeah, Kat, it's a report that documents several examples of anti-Black racism at the University of Windsor's law school, and it's the second time that this consultant has looked at racism on campus. The report's sticking to the recent events. Some of them we've reported on previously. That includes multiple instructors who have used the N-word in classes. A faculty member saying that they couldn't marry a Black person because they were out of the community. Anti-Black racism allegations that briefly shut down the Student Law Society, and attacks online targeting Black students specifically. Those attacks coming following an investigation into the Delta Chi fraternity that was later banned and members sanctioned. Charles Smith put that report together. He was here in 2008 looking at racial profiling at the University of Windsor. He said overt anti-Black racism has never been this blatant in the school's history. Now, in the short term, Smith suggests finding a way to position anti-racism as a core institutional priority, but that's something that faces resistance on campus, he heard. Now, he said there's support for that change, but some told him it's overblown.
There is confidence, though, that the new administration will support them, is supporting them. There are some who, a couple that we had information from who felt that, the Black students who were raising concerns were perhaps being a bit alarmist or exaggerating or whatever it might be, not being truthful. We did not find that.
Chris, what has the reaction been like to this report from students?
Yeah, I spoke with Abby Anderson. She's vice president of the Black Law Students Association, a second-year law student at the University of Windsor. Anderson says that anti-Black racism during her first year at the school was atrocious. She says students felt gaslit when talking about racist attacks, called it exhausting to handle, said the work to solve racism on campus, to address this, was put on the back of Black students, Black staff, Black faculty, all while attending a law school during a pandemic.
I feel that I think the school should have listened to us from the beginning, that the weight should have never been on the students in the first place. And I think this report highlights that there is a systematic issue at the school that does not aid in the betterment of the Black students' mental health, how we're treated at the school, and the faculty's, the importance that the faculty needs to start putting on taking these situations seriously, because it shouldn't have piled up to the point where we needed a report.
Now, she says that she's happy and respectful to the people that have supported her, the faculty and students before her that have done the work, but her biggest fear, Kat, is that no one will read that actual report, that only the Black students on campus, the Black faculty will read it, saying that that isn't going to change anything.
And Chris, you also spoke with the person tasked with creating change, the dean of Windsor's law school. So what is next here?
Yeah, she sees long-term and short-term goals here. Kat, Dean Rimbadi says that she wanted this job last year. A key reason was to address anti-Black racism on campus. She's been with the University of Windsor for 2 decades, says that she's aware that this report just the latest about racism on campus. She told me that hiring a diverse faculty is key to the law school's future, as well as cementing anti-Black racism as a core priority. It's something that she hoped changes through training, through new offices that are created in the wake of recent events. But the reputation that's gained over the years, it's having an impact on recruitment, on students who are going to campus. The percentage of Black students at Windsor Law, it quadrupled between 2017 and 2020, a huge increase. It dropped by 40% in 2021. There's not a single black male student in the law school's first year cohort right now. Now, she hopes Windsor Law's history as a school focused on social justice can help change that, telling me that her message to students looking at a law school, they should go to Windsor Law, saying that the fact they did this report is because they're committed to the values of social justice. Kat?
Thanks for this, Chris. CBC's Chris Ensing live in studio for us tonight. Spring is here. And while that means warmer temperatures and flowers poking through the ground, the melted snow is also revealing something ugly, a winter's worth of litter and other debris all over town. Del Molnar has more on what's being done to clean it up.
This is what you're supposed to do with items you can't put in your garbage can. Bring it to the transfer station. But some are opting to ditch it. South Cameron Road is a popular illegal dumping ground.
It's a disaster here. We called so many times because we've seen lots of cars. They come, especially they come at night or in the middle of the like midnight, and they throw the garbage there. So I asked the guy, the city guy, and I told him, you can put just a wireless camera and they can use my Wi-Fi just to cut them there. But they said they're not allowed. So.
The city has 5 cameras at positions at major dumping areas. In the past 2 years, they've caught about 12 illegal dumpers.
We'll monitor those areas, and if we see somebody dumping there, we use the license plate to identify the owner and contact them to do the cleanup. And so far, since the implementation of those cameras, we've had 100% compliance with the people that have done the dumping.
Fines can be imposed for non-compliance. Albedoni says, unfortunately, they can't catch everyone.
And sometimes, you know, we don't have the camera up at the time, or sometimes the camera isn't positioned quite right and they're just outside of the camera lens, and we don't catch them. We encourage people to let us know if they see some illegal dumping so that we can be aware of those situations. It's as simple as calling 311 so that we can put that on our list of areas to monitor.
What do you think of the garbage you see outside when people dump it illegally?
Oh, I just hate it. I just hate it. I see it out in the county where people go with their pickup trucks and dump mattresses and tires and stuff like that in the ditches occasionally. I hate it.
Residents can arrange for a bulk pickup by calling 311. In years past, volunteers have signed up for the Rose City Clean Sweep program to pick up trash, but the program has been suspended for the past 2 years due to the pandemic. Albedoni says it's now back on.
If there's groups that are doing it, the City of Windsor does offer some supplies for that. We'll give some garbage bags and some gloves, and then we'll go back and return once the cleanup is done and take care of all those garbage bags for them.
Albedoni says volunteers can't clean up the EC Row Expressway due to safety concerns. City crews will be out in the next few days doing that.
If you or a group you belong to want to volunteer for the Clean Sweep program, just call 311. The program begins in April. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
For the economy, the newly announced electric vehicle battery plant is a winner for Windsor. But for the environment, it's not so straightforward. A local environmentalist says zero emissions vehicles are certainly good news, but worries about where the raw materials needed for the batteries will come from and the harm they could potentially do to Ontario.
I would mention, though, that the inputs, the products that go into building the actual batteries, the raw materials, and Ontario is here, again, looking at developing the raw materials for these facilities. So the Ring of Fire up north, the mining plans that the province has to expand the northern areas and to build mines up there, really into carbon sequestration areas, wetlands and peatlands, and again, affecting our greenhouse gas emissions. And so there is an impact, there is an environmental impact in developing these so-called zero emission vehicles.
Beyond the mined materials needed for the batteries, Coronado says EVs still require steel, rubber, and plastic like any other vehicle. He points out that the only true form of zero emission transportation is walking. The flu season was expected to return with a vengeance, but the first reported case of influenza since December 2019 only happened locally 2 days ago. That's according to the Windsor-Essex Health Authority. The low flu caseload has much to do with pandemic restrictions.
some of the measures that we've had in place since the pandemic started, with the COVID pandemic started, with the less gathering and physical distancing and masking and really being hyper vigilant, because people were really hyper vigilant about their symptoms and worried about COVID. So all of those measures have been protective against other respiratory viruses.
Thanks to measures like masking, the common cold is also less common. But the health unit says while the caseload is low, other viruses are still in circulation. What Russia hoped would be a quick and decisive victory has now dragged on for 30 days in Ukraine. Russia says it has lost more than 1,300 troops, but NATO puts the toll much higher. And there are now signs the Russian generals are changing tactics. At the same time, the UN says more than 2,700 Ukrainian civilians have been wounded or killed. CBC's Sasha Petrusik has the latest.
Follow Ukrainian troops into a key battleground of this war, the rubble of cities and towns around Kyiv, and the Russian goal is clear: take the capital. Hundreds of thousands are fleeing, their homes destroyed. But so far, Ukrainian fighters have managed to hold back the invaders from Kyiv itself.
Everybody fears for their lives, but most important, it's a freedom of our nation and future of our nation.
Over the past month, invading Russian forces have sent tanks and troops all over Ukraine. Russian propaganda has boasted of hitting many targets from the air, even launching ballistic missiles from Russia to the far western border of Ukraine. But today, for the first time, Russian generals said their objective is much more limited. We will focus our effort on the main goal, he says, the liberation of Donbas, an eastern region with a large Russian population, far from Kyiv. For Russia, that may be a way to cut this invasion short, since it hasn't gone as easily as Moscow may have hoped, with thousands of Russian troops killed. Many Ukrainians have also died, especially in Mariupol, 300 alone in this bombing of a theater where civilians were hiding, local officials say.
We have, for example, got increasing information on mass graves that are there.
UN human rights monitors say the death toll in Mariupol could be much higher than feared. Under siege, the suffering is widespread.
The encircled city of Mariupol is running out of its last reserves of food and water. No humanitarian aid has been allowed into the city since it was encircled on 24th of February.
And across Ukraine, the funerals are daily. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
In other Canadian news, it is a $7 million eyesore in one of Canada's most expensive neighborhoods. And neighbors on Toronto's Bridle Path say they want the rundown house either fixed up or torn down. But as Ryan Patrick Jones reports, that may be easier said than done.
The Bridle Path in North Toronto, where homes routinely sell for more than $20 million. But in the South End on Salonica Road, this bungalow is anything but glamorous. The windows are boarded up, the roof is falling apart, and it's been vacant for years. These residents who live nearby want to know why the property's been allowed to decline.
It's been getting worse over the last few years, but it's been shut down and uninhabited.
It affects the state of the neighborhood, and it also poses a health and safety risk because it could attract insects, it could attract rodents, it could attract cockroaches.
I guess the owner is waiting to get the price that they think is fair, and they're willing to wait for a heck of a long time to get it.
The house last sold for $7.15 million in 2018. It was listed in 2020 for $6.3 million, but has since been taken off the market. Neighbors have reported the house to the city half a dozen times. Complaints relate to it being unsecured, holes in the roof, a broken fence, graffiti, and garbage on the property. While the homeowner addressed each issue, it continues to rot.
We suspect there are people, the doors are broken, there are people living in there, possibly animals. And we've been very concerned, some of the neighbors have been concerned that it's a fire hazard and a fire could start in the ravine that could quickly spread.
The local councillor, Jay Robinson, says she's tried to force the owner to either tear down the structure or renovate it.
I don't think the city has enough teeth. And so since 2017, we've been back and forth and all over the place trying to address this issue. So what I'm saying is the city needs more powers to say either fix the house and do it within a 6-month period, or it has to be demolished because of health and safety reasons.
Robinson says she's working on a motion to ask the province for new powers to force homeowners to keep their buildings in habitable condition. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
The work of a Windsor-born war reporter have found their way home to the city. A scrapbook containing newspaper and magazine clippings written by journalist Helen Cumming. They were donated this month to the local history branch of the Windsor Public Library from a museum in Washington, D.C. The CBC's Mike Evans stopped by to learn more.
It was in the museum's archive itself, and it didn't meet their collection standards. And so they reached out to us and said, she's from Windsor, Ontario. Would you be interested in having this? And my colleague, looked at me and said, what do you think of this? And I'm like, it's International Women's Month, so we should take that. It is a scrapbook of Helen Cumming, who was a journalist, born and raised. It's a scrapbook of her work specifically related to World War II and her experiences both here and abroad, and particularly in London, England during the Blitz. She was actually what we would now call a war correspondent, which was virtually unheard of for women to do. And what she did was she took her experience as like a social writer, and she applied it to women in London, England, in the midst of the Blitz. Waking up with air raid sirens going around you. You had to adjust to your life, but at the same time, you still had to go to the grocery store. You still had to do all of these things. Who was going to do this for you? Because there weren't very many soldiers around. As I was reading through this, I realized that what she was doing was actually writing about how the women of London kept London going. People worked as neighbors, and there's a picture in here, it says bomb sale, and these are women wearing their best furs, looking for scarves and things to go for sale. And or shopping, you have one picture of this person salvaging furniture that's been bombed, and then on the next page you have a bakery, selling their goods, but the entire window is blown out.
The one thing that gets overlooked in history is women did play a lot of major roles in World War II and World War I, from going to the factories. Well, in England, you're sort of in the front lines because you are being constantly bombed by the Germans. The ladies were really active roles in like home guard, nursing, recording, correspondence. I interviewed a few veterans that worked in like the war rooms that used to plot planes. So they did play a major role, and it's very good to get documents now that can support that voice and add more layers to history and get the good women's history that was going on during those times of conflict.
Let's take a live look outside there. This mixed bag of weather continues because into the weekend, we've got a chance of rain. We also have a chance of flurries. So which is it? Nick Cirkovich will be here after the break, and he will talk us through it all. Stay with us. Nick Sirkovich is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Nick, rain or snow, which is it?
How about a little of column A and a little bit of column B?
Of course.
Does that work for you? I'm going to split it right down the middle. Yeah, we're looking at a shifting weather pattern over the next 24 hours, and that's going to see temperatures that are more or less around seasonal, a little bit below, but more or less around seasonal to well below seasonal. That's going to usher in that winter weather again, at least for a little bit. Here's a look at what's going on. Now, we'll start with the winds first. You notice the shift from more of a west-southwesterly direction to more of a northwesterly direction. That's that colder air in the wake of a cold front that's going to push through the region. Then they kind of pick up with wind gusts 30, 40 kilometers per hour. And take note of these wind directions here, because accumulating snow in the lee of Lake Huron is definitely a likelihood with this particular system. So let's look at what's going on. Now, right now, just a few scattered showers earlier today, otherwise cloud cover in play, but we're watching a system that's pushing in from the west, and this one here is dragging in with it some cold Arctic air behind it. So you look at the forecast board as we move through this evening, so within the next couple of hours, we're looking at rain showers moving across the Windsor area. Then the cold air moves in. We shift over to some white weather, so we've got some snow flurries or light snowfall in some areas moving through for tomorrow morning. Nothing really accumulating with this, although we could see a good shot of it, so might reduce visibilities a bit for tomorrow morning. And then through the afternoon, with those northwesterly winds, we develop snow squalls that last into Sunday, and in the lee of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, potentially here we could see 5-10 centimeters of snowfall, believe it or not. It is coming to the end of March, but mind you, the end of March is a transitional period. So there's a look at the general snow accumulations. I know it says 1 for Windsor. It's unlikely we're going to see anything really accumulating with this, but definitely slicking up the roads. But Lake Huron, definitely in the lee of it, we're expecting to see accumulations 5-10 centimeters of snow. For tonight, a little bit of mixed precipitation, temperatures right around the 0 mark. Tomorrow up to a high of +6 degrees. -2 though on Sunday, -1 on Monday. And look at those overnight lows as well. They're quite cold. A little bit of improvement and more towards seasonal, but not until mid next week.
There you go. We'll look forward to that then.
Little bit of
Thanks
A,
for that, Nick.
little bit of B.
Exactly. Thanks so much. When we come back, this Sunday it is the Oscars, but do they even matter as much as they used to? Eli Glasner takes a look after the break. Welcome back. The Academy Awards will be held on Sunday, and this year's show will see some changes intended to make it more relevant to viewers. It's a response to last year's dismal ratings. Eli Glasner has more.
And the Oscar goes to Halle Berry in Monsters Ball.
For 93 years, the Oscars have given us moments of joy, tears,
oh my God,
and high drama.
Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
But now the Academy faces its biggest crisis. Last year, only 10.4 million people tuned in to watch Nomadland win Best Picture, a historic low continuing a downward trend. Part of the problem? These are the 10 highest grossing films of 2021, superheroes and sequels. And these are the very different Oscar Best Picture nominees.
On this movie,
Canadian Sean Levy is the director of the Oscar-nominated, for visual effects, smash hit Free Guy. He's tired of blockbusters being ignored.
I think it's incomprehensible. I feel like, why in the world would movies get penalized for popularity? Because the level of craft in a movie like No Way Home is exceptional. The level of craft in a movie like Free Guy, we're genuinely proud of.
To lure viewers this year, the Academy added a fan favorite award where fans can vote on Twitter, which means movies like Camila Cabello's Cinderella could get Oscar attention. While at the same time, Oscar producers booted 8 categories, many featuring Canadian nominees, out of the live broadcast.
It's uncomfortable because nobody wants to think they're a second-class citizen.
Canadian director Denis Villeneuve's film Dune received 10 nominations. He's arriving early for the part of the show viewers won't see.
I'm against the idea, but I will go there. I'll be sitting in the room before 4 p.m., so I will be there for cheering for my peers.
Everyone believes that Dune will win this year.
But the ratings problem is bigger than the Oscars.
It's a live TV problem. It's a live TV broadcast problem. Basically, if you're not the Super Bowl or some other kind of major live sporting event, you've been really suffering.
Eli Glasner, CBC News, Los Angeles.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night and a great weekend.